Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and as you can see, we are not doing a retouching video today, but I am talking about something that is very important for retouchers, and that's going to be using a tablet for your retouching. Specifically here, the Wacom Intuos versus the Wacom Intuos Pro. Having just recently upgraded to the Intuos Pro, I thought it would be interesting to kind of compare the two for people who either don't have a tablet yet and are considering purchasing one of these, or people who already have the Wacom Intuos and are deciding whether or not the Wacom Intuos Pro is a worthwhile upgrade. So in this video, I'm going to kind of describe each one, talk about its pros and cons, give you my opinions, and yeah, so that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, welcome back. So before I get started, I'm going to mention that I do use the small versions of these tablets. These tablets do come in a medium and large size, but I prefer the smaller size just for one, it takes up less desk space, but two, when I'm doing my retouching, I'm not actually having to move my arm around a lot, and I can just do a lot of my motions with just my wrist and my hand. I feel like the medium and large sizes are more designed for digital artists or painters who want to be using their arm a lot more, who want to be doing bigger, broader strokes and really have that feeling of drawing and painting. But for retouching, you know, we're zooming into our image a lot. We don't need to be doing really big motions. And if you have a bigger tablet, you're just going to have to moving your arm around, especially if you're going up to your menu systems and going to your tools. It just requires a lot more movement than I really like. So for me, the small size is perfect, but again, that is a preference, so you might have to see what's most comfortable for you. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the Wacom Intuos. So the Wacom Intuos retails for about $78 US, and I think that is for the non-Bluetooth version, which is the one here. But at the time of recording this video, I've noticed it's on sale for about $50, so you might be able to pick it up a little bit cheaper if you can time it while it's on sale. Now, if we look at the tablet itself, it comes in at a size at about 8 inches by 6 inches, but the active area, now that's the area that you can actually draw in, is a little bit smaller, coming in around 6 inches by 4 inches, and it has a micro USB connection. And like I said, this version is the non-Bluetooth one, so this one has to always be plugged in to the computer, but there is a Bluetooth version with, I guess, a battery, so you can charge it and use it wirelessly. You will also see at the top, we have these 4 what they call express keys, and these are buttons that can be customized to do anything you want. You can go into the Wacom configuration menu, and you can assign these buttons to basically do any function that you want or act like a keyboard shortcut, so they can be used to do things like scroll, zoom in, zoom out, or you can assign it a shortcut key like what I do with Affinity Photo, where I have these buttons assigned to commonly used actions, things like merge visible or liquefy or export and things like that. And of course you get the stylus or the pen, and the pen also has 2 buttons that are fully customizable. I think by default one of the buttons is used as a right click and the other one might be used as a scroll, but again you can customize those to do anything you like. And a pretty neat thing is if you unscrew the pin here, you'll see that you get a few extra what they call the nibs. These are the little plastic tips at the end of the pen. Because they are plastic, you know, they will eventually wear down, I guess, depending on how, you know, much pressure you're putting on the pen. And so you can quickly take them out and replace them with a newer nib. And so you have a nice round surface. Of course, you can buy packs of these nibs for a few bucks, so it's not really a big issue, but it is kind of cool. So I had been using this tablet for a few years now before I decided to upgrade into the Pro. And actually, if you pay attention to my intro video, you'll notice the tablet I use in that video is different. That's actually just the older version of the Wacom Intuos. At one point, I lost the pen and couldn't find it, and I couldn't get a replacement pen for whatever reason. And so I just ended up buying the Wacom Intuos again, but by then it had been updated, and so now it looks like this. And so I think this is a really great tablet, especially if you're just kind of starting out and you don't want to go ahead and spend the $200 for the Pro version. Now, if I were to mention some of the things that I don't like about this particular tablet, one is the pen itself is a bit light, plasticky, and kind of thin. I noticed that when I first started using it, I just felt like my fingers were more cramped around it because it was smaller and it didn't have a big thick grip, which I kind of liked. But I eventually got used to it. But after using the Pro version, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I really realized I do like the Pro version of the pen more than the one that comes with the normal Intuos. But again, there's no problem with it at all. It works perfectly. And it does have this little pen holder at the top, which I almost never use, but it's there. And I guess another thing I didn't really like is I don't understand why they went with this elbowed connector for the micro USB. I guess because I'm using the tablet on my right with my keyboard on my left. I just don't like that the cable is coming out toward the left of the tablet. I preferred it just went straight out, straight up. That way it goes straight to my computer. But again, that's just a nitpick. Now, looking at the Wacom Intuos Pro, this one is a little bit more expensive, retailing for about $200 US. As you can see, it is physically bigger than the Wacom Intuos, coming in at a size at 11 inches by almost 7 inches, with an active area of 6.3 inches by almost 4 inches. So the active area is roughly the same size as the previous one. And also, both of these tablets have an active area aspect ratio of 16 by 10, which is going to be a little bit wider than your normal 16 by 9 computer monitor, but I don't find it to be an issue at all. If you really want, you can go into the Wacom configuration menu and you can actually adjust the size of the active area, making it a little bit smaller or wider just to fit your computer screen's ratio. But for me, I like to use the entire active area, so I don't really adjust with that. And this one is USB-C powered, so you can use it completely plugged in all the time, or because it is Bluetooth enabled and does have an internal battery, you can unplug it and use it completely wirelessly, which is always nice just because you have one less cable on your desk. And as you can see, this one now has 6 express keys as opposed to 4. And we also have this little touch wheel, which can be assigned to do things like increase, decrease brush size, zoom in and out, scroll. You can set it to do anything you want. And now looking at the pen, this is what I felt was the biggest upgrade for me, is the pen on the Intuos Pro is heavier, it's thicker, and it just has a nice weight and feel to it. Not to say the one on the Intuos is bad, but it's just a bit thinner, lighter, and more plasticky feeling. And I feel that this one just has a bit more weight and just feels a bit, higher quality. The main thing for me is just the grip is a lot thicker and I feel like it's more comfortable in my hands. Now I know that that is a preference because Wacom does sell a thinner version of their Pro pen, but for me, I personally prefer a bit bulkier, weightier pen. This one also has an eraser feature, so you can turn it upside down and erase with it, or you can set that to do anything you want. Personally, I don't really use that feature too often just because, it's just faster for me to press E on my keyboard to switch to the eraser and then press B to switch back as opposed to having to flip my pen back and forth. One difference I did notice between the Wacom Intuos Pro pen and the normal pen is the Wacom Intuos Pro pen kind of depresses down a little bit more when you're writing with it. I think the other one, there's a little bit of give when you press down on the pen, but the Wacom Intuos Pro pen, it definitely depresses down a bit more when you're writing with it. That's not an issue at all. It's just something I kind of had to get used to, and it has a bit of a different feel than drawing with the normal Wacom Intuos pen. This one also comes with a nice pen stand, which is really useful. So when you're done, you can just put the pen in it, and so you never lose your pen. And it's actually a nice weighted base. It kind of feels like a paperweight. And if we turn it upside down and unscrew it, this is where you have all your spare nibs. And it actually comes with these 3 felt-tipped felt nibs. And they have a little bit of a texture to it. So when you're writing on it, it kind of feels like you're writing a bit on paper because it's not as smooth as the plastic one. The overall device just feels a bit better constructed. I guess it is more pro. So not to say the Wacom Intuos is poorly constructed or cheap by any means, but I think that, since this is the pro version, it does feel a lot nicer. It feels a little bit heavier. It feels a bit more solid, and just the materials used seem to be a little bit nicer. But yeah, that's just, again, it's not really a big issue. So another interesting feature that this one has is this one actually has gesture controls or touch gesture controls. So something that just like you would see on a trackpad or something like the Apple Magic Trackpad, or even a tablet like an iPad, is you can use multi-finger gestures to do things like zoom in and zoom out, the kind of classic 2-finger scroll, pinch to zoom and stuff like that. I actually have that feature always turned off. You can turn it off with a little switch here on the side, just because I felt that it's not as precise as a dedicated trackpad. And I was always a bit worried that if I was drawing with the pen, that it might, kind of accidentally pick up my palm and try to do something like a zoom or a scroll when I didn't want it to. I honestly haven't played with it that much. I played with it a little bit in the beginning, but I just found it wasn't as accurate or precise or as sensitive as I would have liked, so I just turned it off. But I think it's definitely an interesting feature, and you should play around with it, and you might actually find more use out of it than I did. Now, if I were to talk about some of the things I don't like about it, and these are pretty nitpicky, but for example, I preferred the express keys at the top of the tablet as opposed to the left, or I guess right, depending on how you orientate your tablet, just because it was much easier for my fingers to reach up and press the express keys when they're right above, as opposed to having to move my hand to the left of the tablet to press the express keys. And this is also why I don't actually have the scroll wheel assigned to anything in Affinity Photo, just because, doing things like zooming in and zooming out or increasing or decreasing my brush size, that's just easier for me to do on my keyboard. I think the way these things are designed is they were kind of designed where you would have the tablet in front of you with your left hand kind of off to the side and your right hand using the pen. And then you would use your left hand to press the express keys or use the scroll wheel to zoom in or zoom out. But for retouchers, most of us are going to have our left hand on the keyboard because you have quick access to all your things like clone stamping, in painting, brush, eraser, zoom in, zoom out, etc. And then your right hand is on the pen, which means that if I'm using the express keys, I'm using them with my right hand. So I do use them, but for me, I felt I liked them better when they were at the top. Another thing is that I do really enjoy the fact that I can use this wirelessly, but maybe just because of the battery or the way, a tablet is compared to a keyboard, you're not going to get as much battery life as you would with like a wireless keyboard or wireless mouse. I have a wireless mouse and a wireless keyboard, and I feel like maybe I have to switch out the batteries on these, once every 3 or 4 months, where with a tablet, it's more around once every 3 or 4 days. So not really a big issue, and you can use it permanently plugged in all the time. But yeah, I do wish the battery life was a bit longer where I could use it for weeks on end without having to charge it. Another thing that is kind of a nitpick about the wireless use is that sometimes you might be working on a photo, you might get up and go take a break, get a snack, get a glass of water, and then you come back and you'll notice the tablet has turned off. And it's not really a big deal. You just got to press the power button and it turns back on in a few seconds. But when you have it plugged in all the time, it never turns off. So it's always nice. You can always just come back to the pen and start using it immediately. So anyways, those are basically the two. Now, which do I prefer? I think now that I have the Pro, I just prefer the Pro. I like the feel of the pen. I like the weight of the pen. I like the slightly bigger size. I like the feel of the surface texture. It's not to say the Intuos, the normal Intuos is bad by any means. Like I said, I used that for many years before switching over to the Pro. So I think it's really going to come down to probably your budget. If you don't have a tablet yet, I think the Wacom Intuos is a great way to start, and you could probably use that for your entire career. If you have the Intuos already and you're deciding whether you want the Pro, I would say if you can, see if you can test out how you like the feel of it. And like I said, for me, the pen was the biggest upgrade. Unfortunately, you just can't buy the Pro pen and use it with the Intuos. It only works with the Pro tablet. Other good points is you may want more express keys. I think having more express buttons are always nice because you can always just assign more functions to it. You might find a use for the scroll wheel. You might actually use those touch gestures. So I think the Pro does offer a lot more options. And again, having it being wireless is always nice because you can easily just not have it plugged in and just have a nice clean looking work area. But I do think that both of these are fantastic devices, and it's really going to come down to your preference and budget as to which one you choose. So for me, now that I'm on the Pro, I'm gonna obviously stay with the Pro. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The next video we will be going back to doing some retouching, but I just felt that the tablet is a very important tool for a retoucher. So because I recently upgraded, I thought it would be interesting to kind of compare the two. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And of course, if you have any questions about the tablet, just leave a comment down below and I will answer it. And I guess until then, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.